So one of the important concepts that we saw during the k-means clustering algorithm was initialization strategy. If you recall the k-means algorithm, we had this initialization strategy where we were saying that the first step in the Lloyd's algorithm is basically we have to pick k points randomly from the dataset and make them as the k centroids. So we are calling that as now initialization strategy. So any drawback of that strategy? Can anybody tell me what is the drawback of that? Any one of you? Like when we were saying that this is the first step in the Lloyd's where we select k points randomly from the data set and calling them k centroid. So that type of initialization has a drawback. So can anybody tell what that drawback is, or anybody can
Choosing the
think
best
of?
K,
Sorry.
choosing the best K value.
Yeah, choosing the best k value is the basic problem here. Like we cannot select the you know basically if you don't know, well, like whether k equal to 2 will give you a best value or 3 will give you a best value. So that is basically the main drawback of this approach. So in order to basically and one more problem is, like, best value is the one of the problem, and the second problem that actually this particular k-means algorithm is that it suffers from the initialization sensitivity. That is that is the major problem that we have here. Like, that problem which you are saying will always be there. You cannot avoid that. But the problem which I am discussing today in this particular uh, under this topic is, it's a major problem, which is initialization strategy. So what that initialization sensitivity. So what that means is your final clusters and the centroids actually, it depends upon the initialization. So that is the major drawback. So let's see what this actually is. So if you see here, we have these original data points here. This is basically the original data cluster that you are seeing. One is with purple color, one is this, and one is this color. So we have three different colors, and all of them are properly um, colored actually. So you know the ground truth for this particular data set. You know the ground truth already, that this is one cluster, this is the second cluster, and this is the third cluster. So if you know this particular data set ground truth already, so let's remove the labels now and do the k-means clustering on it. And in that process, so this will be k equal to 3 actually here now, because we have three clusters. So we will be taking k equal to 3 for this problem. So now for this particular scenario which you are observing here, you must have initialized k in a actually in a proper way. Like, you must have initialized the centroids in a proper way. Let us say by chance you have selected the centroids here, here, and here. So what happened was, during the k-means clustering algorithm, centroid shifted to this point, and the initial centroid shifted to this point, and the initial centroid here is shifted to this point. So there can be a chance. So in that scenario, what happened is your k-mean clustering algorithm has returned this particular output, where you can see one cluster is this, another cluster is this, and the third cluster is this. The only misclassification the only the clustering problem that happened is only for these 2 points. If you observe carefully, in the initial setting, we had these 2 points already in this particular data, in this particular in this particular cluster, but now these 2 points are shifted to this cluster. So that is the only drawback that happened. But anyhow, we can call this type of clustering as optimal clustering, which we are saying over here. So this is the optimal clustering, where majority of the clusters are properly formed. But here in this case, on the right side, if you see, it might be the case that your algorithm initialization of the cluster centroids happened in some other direction. I don't know which one it will be, but some way or the other, once you iterate, what happens is your k-mean clustering will move these centroids to this point, and this point. So the centroid locations are changed, and because of which you have one cluster which is this, another cluster which is this, and the third cluster which is this. So, and you already know well advanced that this is not the proper cluster, because you already know cluster has to be something like this. So this shows that this particular type of strategy that this particular type of clustering is also called as suboptimal clustering, because the clusters that are formed here are not optimal. It is something like this. So, uh, so, so you can see that based on the initialization of your centroids, you will get different type of clusters. In the first case, this is the cluster if your centroids are initialized properly with these two as the error. Whereas in the second case, you will end up over these points. So this is the major problem that you have in case of random initialization of the centroids. So can anybody tell me how to avoid these type of situation? Like if we want to some way or the other, try to reduce this type of error, how can we do that? Can anyone tell us? Any idea?
Maybe instead of choosing random centroids, we can have something tentative kind of centroids.
By tentative means what?
Like we can like look at the data points and select cluster accordingly, and then have that algorithm run in order to find the best centroids.
Accordingly means what? By saying that you will be selecting the centroid accordingly. How to measure that accordingly, actually mathematically?
Like suppose we have okay, yeah,
That is the thing,
that's
na?
there.
Actually, how to pose your problem mathematically, because whenever you will encounter these type of situation in your real life also, you have to project it mathematically, what you are saying. Otherwise, your algorithm will not be able to solve that problem. So that is the thing. Okay, so
Euclidean distance can help, sir.
the Euclidean distance, anyhow, you are using here also in case of k-means. You are doing that Euclidean distance here also. If you see the cost function that we were looking at, it's also the Euclidean distance between the data point and the mean. If you recall that k-means algorithm, the Lloyd's algorithm, that is also taking Euclidean distance only. Okay, so the thing is, let us before going to the solution, let me show you one more scenario in which you have this type of scene coming up, and in this you see what I am showing is different iterations of this k-means algorithm, and the k-mean algorithm is going from iteration 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So in the first strategy, where in the first iteration here, what we are doing is we are randomly selecting one of the data points as the centroids. If you observe here, I am taking one of the data points as the centroid. So as you can see now, as the iteration moves, this centroid is actually moving like this, then it is coming here, then it is this side, and this side. So you can see the location of this centroid, the first one, and the second centroid location with each iteration is changing like this, and then it is changing to this, then this, then it comes here, and then it's here. So and the similar thing can you can observe for this centroid also. So you can see how you initialized these centroids at random location, and you ended up at this location, which is here. And please note the locations that you have here are the same here also. That's why the loss will be nearly same, and you can terminate your k-means. So as you can see, the location of the centroids are same, so loss will be nearly same. So that is the point where you can terminate your k-means algorithm. So, so now you can see how randomly initialized clusters ended up in a very good positions here, and you are getting a well-defined separated clusters like this. But in the second case, if let us say your clusters are initialized randomly in this way, like the first cluster is here, the second is here, and the third is here, then with multiple iterations, it ended up like this, and this. So now you can see you have clusters in this format, where you have one cluster like this, another cluster like this, and the third cluster is like this. So this is the suboptimal cluster. So, so this is actually, you can see how with different initialization of the clusters is resulting in a suboptimal clustering, which is given over here, whereas this was the optimal clustering that you got with different with the centroids. So now I think the picture is clear to all of you that how centroids initialization is affecting the clustering phenomena. Okay, so let me discuss how to solve this problem. So there are two ways of solving this problem. There are two ways of solving this problem. The first way is you repeat k-means. You repeat k-means multiple times. So you repeat your k-means multiple times with different initializations of the centroid. And then once you do that, you pick up the best clustering. So what is best here? The best here will be the lowest cost function. That is the best. So what is the how to solve? The first way is to repeat k-means multiple times with different initialization of the cluster settings, and you pick up the best clustering out of it. So let us say you are running from iterations 1 to 200. You randomly initialize your k-mean clusters, and then you run your k-means and compute the loss function that we have already discussed during the Lloyd's algorithm. So you compute that loss function and you pick up the lowest cost function, that is the lowest loss function that corresponds to your best cluster. So this is the first way of solving this problem of of this suboptimal clustering. And the second one is what we call as a new algorithm, which we call as k-means plus plus. So this is the second way of solving this problem of suboptimal clustering. And as you can see, we have plus plus here. It is something on top of k-means algorithm. That's why we are writing it as k-means plus plus. It is similar to C and C++, where C++ has some advanced OOPS concepts compared to your C. So that's why similar thing applies here also. That is, the rest of the most of the algorithm is same, but the only thing that is changed here in k-means plus plus is that it replaces the random initialization with the intelligent initialization. See, previously what we were doing is we were doing random initialization of the centroids, but now instead of doing random initializations, we will be doing intelligent initializations. So let us see what this intelligent initialization means. So here it's again noted down that k-means plus plus differs from k-means only in the initialization step. Please note, this is only the difference. The rest of the algorithm will remain the same. So let us discuss what is the intelligent initialization in k-means plus plus. So what is the initialization strategy in k-means plus plus? The initialization strategy is that the first point is that you pick the first centroid randomly from the dataset. This is similar to the Lloyd's algorithm step, where we were also taking the where we were also taking centroids randomly from the dataset, but now we are only taking first centroid. Whereas in case of Lloyd, we were taking multiple centroids from the dataset randomly. So this is the first difference that you have. So we are taking first centroid randomly from the dataset. Now the important point comes is, if you want to take the new centroid, if you want to take a new centroid from the data points xi, because you are making these centroids, you are taking from these data points only. So the probability of selecting this centroid, the second centroid, will be given by this. This is the probability with which you have to select the, this is the probability with which you have to select the second centroid. And what is this probability and what is this d? Actually, this distance d is basically a square distance between the data point xi and to the nearest centroid. So whatever data point you have xi, you calculate that data point distance from its nearest centroid and you square it, and once you square it, it will be in the numerator, and in the denominator you have to take all that data points summation which are actually near to that centroid. So if you do that summation and divide it divide in the denominator here, you will get a probability, and that probability basically is the probability which will give you which centroid you have to select. So we will see one example to understand this. So let us say you have a data set which is given over here on the left side. Let me do not draw the here. So you have two clusters, which is one cluster is this one, second cluster is this one, let us say. So now what is the first step? First step is to pick the first centroid randomly from the data set. This is your first step. So what I will do is I will take this point as the centroid because it is randomly, this point has to be selected randomly. So what I am doing is I am selecting this C1 randomly, and this is our point of a centroid. So now what is the second thing? The second thing is take the new centroid Cj from Xi with probability this. So before calculating probability, the important thing is to calculate this distance which we are talking about, the square distance which we are talking about between the data point Xi and the nearest centroid. Note, it has to be a nearest centroid. So in this particular case, for these data points, the nearest centroid is C1. For this data point, what will be the nearest centroid? Can anyone tell me?
Sir, as there is only one centroid, it seems like it's C1 only.
Yeah, good. So as he rightly said, because right now we are having only one centroid, so it will be C1 only. So what we will do is we will calculate the so for all these data points, C1 will be the nearest centroid. So what we will do, we will calculate the distance of all these data points which are left with respect to C1, and you can see on this particular slide, on this part of the slide, you can see that the blue points which are dotted blue are the distance of these data points from C1, and the yellow dotted points are the distance of this particular data points from C1, and the value of these yellow and blue dots is evaluated like this. And as you can see, it's a Euclidean distance, which is the data point Xi minus the nearest centroid, which is C1. So what you are doing, you are taking the Xi minus C1 mod square. So it's a Euclidean distance that you are actually calculating between these points. So now once you do that, once you have already calculated that, you record it in a form of table, which is like this. Here you record it in the form of a table. And what this table says is that if you have x1 data point, what is that distance of x1 from the C1? You record it as dx1 square. For x2, you record it as dx2 square. And similarly for x3 and for xm data points, you record it as dxm square. And note, you have to exclude the centroid C1 because the distance between the C1 and the C1 itself will be 0. So there is no point in putting that. So in this data points, you have to exclude this particular C1. So once you have these distances calculated, what you can do is these values will be some values. It will be like let me write it over here. Let me, so it may be like let's say for example 2. Let us say it comes out to be 5. Let us say it comes out to be 7 here. Okay, so and here you will have also multiple such values. So I am ignoring them. Right now I am taking only 3 values, 2, 5 and 7. So how to calculate probability out of this? It's very easy. As you know, the probability basically is nothing but its value will be between 0 to 1. So what we do is we actually calculate we calculate one more operation on these 2, 5 and 7, and what is that? It will be 2 divided by 2 plus 5 plus 7, that will give you the probability for x1. For x2, it will be 5 divided by 2 plus 5 plus 7. So it will give you a probability for x2. And then for x3, you have 7 divided by 2 plus 5 plus 7. So it will give you the probability for x3. And you can see when you sum that up, it will give you value of 1. So what this in the denominator is saying is, as you can see here, we have this denominator. So this denominator term is nothing but sum of all these distances. So you keep it in the denominator here always. So the result that you get out of these evaluation will be the probability. And now the important thing is how to select the next centroid. To select the next centroid, you have to select this based on the highest probability. I missed it out here, but it has to be like with high probability. So the data point that has highest probability will be selected. So now if you see here, xm will be the data point that is having the highest probability of 7 divided by 2 plus 5 plus 7. So among these points which you are seeing here, can you intuitively tell me like which data point will that be? Instead of calculating here, you can observe that also. Can anyone tell me what will be the data
Sir,
point?
the top right one.
Yes. So this one will be the point which will have highest probability, obviously, because in the numerator you have the distance, and this distance is maximum from the centroid. That's why this is the point which will be the next centroid selection point. So I am writing this here again, that pick a point xi excluding c1, excluding the centroid, with the probability proportional to the this evaluation which I have already shown you. So based on this evaluation, you will select this as the next centroid, and that's why you have it here. This is the second one, and this is the first one which is given over here. But now let us say if you have a third cluster also, which is given over this side. If you have third cluster also, so what will happen is, now you will calculate the distance of all these points which are over here. You will calculate the distance of all these points over here with respect to you will calculate the distance of all these points with respect to C1 and with respect to C2. So you have to see which cluster is close. So here, if you note, I am writing nearest centroids. You can see here I am writing nearest centroid. So for these data points, you have to note that which is the nearest centroid. This centroid is near, or this centroid is near. So once you and you can see that this centroid is near to this particular cluster. So now you can calculate the distance and see the probability. So the next selection point of this cluster will be C3. As you can see, it has the highest distance compared to this nearest centroid. So now you can see how efficiently you have actually selected the clusters which are far apart. So you can see one cluster you have selected is C1, another cluster selected is C2, and the third cluster selected is C3. In the case of k-means, there is no guarantee that your initialization of the clusters will be at these locations. You will somewhere or the other will select here or somewhere here. So there can be a high chance that it will be like that. So this is the important algorithm which actually gives you a intelligent initialization in the steps. So when the initialization step is completed, you repeat this step 2 which I have discussed earlier until you have all the clusters done. So as I have shown you that first of all I have done it for first cluster, then I did for second cluster, then third cluster. So you continue to do that till your k is finished. Like if you have taken k is equal to, let us say, 5, so you have to do this initialization 5 times. So once that is done, then you proceed with the normal standard k-means algorithm which you have for the Lloyd algorithm that we have discussed. So this is k-means plus plus. So So anybody having any questions related to k-mean plus plus, let me know. Any one of you?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
So what if two data points have same distance from the nearest centroid?
Then you can take any one of them. But the probability is that, if the 2 points are, can you come again? What you are saying?
So we are calculating this distance from the nearest centroid for every data points, right?
Okay, so what you are saying is if two data points has the highest distance, that is what you are saying, right?
Yes, yes, sir.
Can take any one of them.
Okay, sir. And so the initial C1 which we took, I mean, we took that randomly, right?
Yeah, that one is random here.
So if we take instead of this C1, if we take C1 somewhere else, then will it not affect the actual ideal clusters?
Why it will affect? Because some way or the other you have to calculate the distances of all that points to that cluster C1, right? So if you have selected this particular cluster, let us say this one, then again you have to calculate the distances, right? And then this will be the only cluster which will have the maximum distance. Or maybe, if you would have selected this cluster, then also this will be the one which will be selected as the cluster because it has a maximum distance.
So we
So
need to take among. Okay, okay, sir. Okay.
maybe, if you select this cluster, then maybe this one will be selected, depends upon that which will give you a maximum one. That is the thing. So the idea is to select the cluster far apart. It should not be selected quite close to each other. So it has to be far apart selection. So k-means plus plus is trying to select the random initialization of the clusters in such a way that the maximum distance is there in between them. That is the thing. So they are trying to do something like, as you have these interclusters here, so it is trying to find the cluster centroids in between with a maximum distance. So that is what they are trying to do.
Yes, sir.
Sir, and while trying to find the third centroid, like let's
Yeah.
say
Hmm.
first centroid I have initialized,
Hmm.
second centroid using the distance I have calculated, third centroid, like with respect to C1, once again we have to calculate that third centroid. Once
Yes,
again with
yes.
respect to
This is what I was discussing here. So, for example, in this third centroid thing here, what you do is you first see that with respect to C1 and with respect to C2, which centroid is near. So, if you observe here, I have written nearest centroid. If you see here, so this distance is actually calculated for all the points to the nearest centroid. So, in this case, you have to see like C1 is nearer or C2 is nearer. That is, so once you realize that C1 is nearer, so based on that you have to calculate the distances and then select the third centroid.
oh,
Okay, so once this k-means plus plus is done, so can anyone tell me the limitations of k-means? Like, what are the limitations of the k-means? K-means or k-means plus plus, both of them are, because as you see, most of the algorithm of k-means and k-means plus plus is, in the only difference is the first step. But anyway, what are the drawbacks of the k-means will still remain with the k-means plus plus also. So let me show you the limitations of the k-means. So k-means actually has a problem that when clusters are of different sizes or densities or non-convex shapes, or by the so in this particular type of situation where your clusters are of different size, density and non-convexity shapes, your k-means actually fails to cluster the data points. And second thing is it is also affected by outliers severely. So we will see all these cases separately so that you will get to know what is going on here. So let us see these cases separately. So for example, first case which we are discussing is different size clusters, and we are taking k equal to 3 here. So in this situation, as you can see on the left side, if you have a data set like this, anybody can tell that we have three clusters here by visually seeing these clusters. So even if they are not colored also, anybody can tell that there is one cluster, this one, the second cluster is this, and the third cluster is this. There is no problem in doing clustering here by visually seeing these clusters. But the problem is when you do it with k-means, what happens is k-means will return you something like this on the right side. So what it will do is it will take this as your cluster, this as your cluster, and this as your cluster. So as you can see here, the problem is, k-means actually try to create clusters of same size. So here you see we have different sizes. One is small, this is also small, this is a big cluster here. So it tries to come up with the clustering setting in which sizes are nearly same. So that's why this particular k-means algorithm fails on these type of cluster settings, where you have this cluster coming up like this and they are all equal sizes. If you see here on the right side, they are all of equal sizes. So this is the problem, that if you give different size clusters to k-means or k-means plus plus, it will give you this type of suboptimal result. The second one is the cluster with different densities. So by saying different densities means you can see on the left side, this is one cluster, this is second cluster, and this is the third cluster. As you can see, the number of points in this cluster are very small and they are actually sparse points, very less points, and the density of the clusters here is very small. Whereas in this case, the density of the clusters is very high and they are highly packed. But now, as you also can see by visually, you can classify, you can cluster these three clusters, um, and say that this is the first cluster, this is the second, this is the third. They are clearly visible also. But the problem is with k-means, when it will try to do it, it will produce this as the first cluster, this as the second cluster, and this as the third cluster. So that is also a major problem in case of k-means, and this is a serious problem. So this is the drawback that we have in case of k-means algorithm or in k-means plus plus also. Uh, what is the third one? The third one is the non-convex shapes. So what are non-convex shapes? Let me recall that. So if you have, if you have something like this, some shape like this, then what is convex shape? The convex shape is if you take 2 points here and if you can see them visually, if you can see them, well, basically if you have two persons standing like this, one is here and another one is here, if they can see each other, then the set in which they are enclosed is called as convex point. So as you can see, they can see each other, so this particular set is convex. This is a very simple way of explaining the convexity. So if let us say you have something like this, then if the two persons are standing over here, so obviously they cannot see each other because you have a hill in between them. So this type of shapes are called as non-convex shapes. So here I am showing you the particular data set which is non-convex, and you can see one data set is this, and you can also clearly say that these are the two clusters that will form. But when you pass this type of shape to the k-means algorithm, what will happen? It will give you this as a cluster and this as the cluster, second cluster. As you can see, both of them are of nearly equal shapes. So it tries to come up with this type of situation, and here I am taking k equal to 2 for this particular problem setting where we have two convex clusters, non-convex clusters. So this is the problem. Like if you have data sets which belong to either of these three categories, your k-means algorithm will not work properly. And the fourth one is that it is sensitive to the outlier. So if you have something like this, if you have something like this, then if you have this as an outlier, if you have this as an outlier, what will happen? Clustering algorithm will move the centroid to this position, move the centroid to this position. So it will form one cluster like this, another one cluster like this. Because of this centroid, because of this outlier, what will happen? As you can recall, we have in the case of Lloyd's algorithm, we have something like this. We have something like this. So this outlier will try to dominate this particular situation, and because of that, k-means algorithm will enclose this outlier and form this yellow cluster and the orange cluster which is on the left side. And the important thing is, you note that the centroids that you have over here are not the centroids of the data points. So these, though we initialize our Lloyd's algorithm with data points at the centroids, but during the course of the execution, the centroids may be different from the data points itself. So because of this outlier, you can see how the cluster is enclosing that outlier and form this cluster, and the second cluster is here, whereas these 3 points were actually for this cluster, but because of this outlier, it went into this cluster. So we will discuss how to avoid this situation. We will see that how to avoid this. We will come back to this slide again, but for time being, what I am showing over here is that these are the different scenarios in which your k-means algorithm will fail. So can you suggest me any idea that how to avoid at least these three situations which are given over here and here and here? So can anyone tell me what can be done in order to avoid these situations which are coming up because of k-means? Any idea what we can do?
Measuring the distance between data points.
Sorry, can you come again? What you are saying?
Measuring the distance between data points, like
How will
there
you
will be
near
some
the
kind of.
distance? The data points distance is already fixed, right? You cannot make them close together.
Yes, yes, but there will be some kind of homogeneity if there is a cluster.
No, the thing is, you have plotted that points based on the features of that point. For example, if you have plotted this data points based on the decision that you want to cluster them into cancer and non-cancer clusters, then how can you make these points come close to each other? Because each of them will represent some feature of that particular genes. So you cannot move them because they are already fixed and rigid. You cannot move them close to each other. So, so the to overcome at least some part of that limitation is like what you can do is you can use too many clusters. You can use too many clusters. For example, in this case, when we were using k is equal to 3, now we can, so now instead of using k equal to 3, I will use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we will be using 10 clusters. So doing over clustering. So instead of doing k equal to 3, I am doing k equal to 10. But now the important thing is once you do over clustering, as you can see on the right side, all these small centroids will have their small contributions, small clusters revolving around that centroids. So the research problem which is open, like you can work out on this in case if you want to do any further pursue of your studies. The open research problem is how to how to combine these clusters, at least these clusters together to form a single cluster. This already that this will be one cluster, this will be one cluster. But the open research problem is how to know that these clusters actually will constitute a single cluster of this particular cluster. So that is the open problem. So the challenge is how to actually put these at least clusters together and color them with the same color. So this is the thing. This way you can actually overcome the limitations, but there is no such algorithm right now which can do this. Maybe in the research papers, if you look, maybe you can find that out. But right now, from my understanding, I think how to bring these clusters together to form a single cluster, I have not found any paper like that. Maybe somebody would have done
Sir,
it. Yeah.
sir, what does DB-scan do in its algorithm? Like,
So
does
right
it?
now, see in the DB scan, it's based on density base. So that is can be used, but it has some other, way of doing it. Right now, I cannot recall it, but that problem I think may I don't know whether it will address this type of situation or not. That I cannot recall right now. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So in this case, what you can do is you can use multiple such clusters and form that single cluster, and the only way you can do it is by joining these clusters, but you have to find out the way out for doing it. Okay, the second way is the second thing is for this particular thing also you have to do that similar thing. Try to use over clustering and with this type of thing, try to find out the way to cluster these all clusters together. And similarly for this, you can see how using over clustering is actually doing a small clusters like this, and then you have to find a way to cluster these as a single cluster. So this is one way, but it's not complete. You have to find a way of joining these clusters, which are small clusters belonging to the same group. Okay, now this is all for k-means, and what we have discussed is k-means plus plus, and the disadvantages of k-means. So let us discuss further how far we can go in this k-means with some other modifications. So if you see here, this is the data set that you have here. So if you apply k-means or k-means plus plus to this particular type of data set which is given over here, what results you can expect from that? Like you can see you have two data sets, one cluster, no sorry, two clusters. One cluster is this, another one is this cluster. So in this particular case, can anyone tell me that if I apply k-means or k-means plus plus, what will be the clustering that will happen for this particular data set? Any one of you can answer?
Inner cluster will be like a single entity, while the outer one will be like differentiated into multiple clusters, I guess.
So what you are saying is it will be like this, and the third one, the second one will be like this, and third one will be like this. Something like that you are saying? Like this,
Not exactly like smaller cluster.
like this.
Equal, yeah, something like that.
But how then? What about these points which are here?
They will be like another cluster of similar size as of the middle one. Like
But
I think there will be 6 clusters surrounding the circular loop.
No, but by visually seeing how many clusters you are thinking here.
2 clusters only. Yeah.
But then on what basis you will increase it to k equal to 6? Like though you are saying that we have two clusters here, there is no point in initializing your k means with k equal to 6. There is no justification for that, and everybody will do k equal to 2 here, right? Because there are two clusters only, right?
Sir, if you do k equal to 2 here, it will divide the circle into two halves.
Like
Or
in
both of the circles divided into two halves.
two halves.
And,
So okay.
It will be like two clusters.
So what you are saying is like this, right?
Semicircles, yes, sir.
Right, right. So it will be doing something like that, and you can see over here on the left side, when you do that using k means, what will happen is right now I am drawing it in this way. So it will give you one cluster like this, another one will be like this. So two clusters will be formed like this way, and the thing is, and the centroids of these two clusters, as you can see here, the first cluster will have this as the centroid, and for the second cluster you will have this as the centroid. So this is the way your k-means will return for this particular data set. But can you tell me why your normal k-means or k-means plus plus cannot come up with this type of boundary which is given over here, like the way which we were thinking of, that it should produce something like this? Can you reason out intuitively by seeing the Lloyd's algorithm, by seeing the distance of that Lloyd's algorithm, and tell me that why k-means cannot actually inherently produce, k-means will fail to do like this? Why it is like that?
Sir, it seems like the second centroid, first centroid, if we just take one cluster, right?
Okay.
And if we do some kind of thresholding on the distance, then only one centroid if we take, then it will be the inner circle itself. But when comes the second centroid, that is k is equal to 2,
Right.
it tries to capture the some space of first centroid somehow. And that
You
is
are
the,
a bit close to it, but I'll tell you the reason. Like what he is saying is also close to it, that if you take the first, this data set, its centroid will be here, right? Everybody agrees with that. Like if some way or the other your k-means, gives this result, the right one, the centroid of the inner cluster will be here, and the centroid of the outer cluster will also be on top of it. So it will be coinciding. Both of them will be coinciding, right? Everybody agrees with that? That your C1 and C2
Yes,
will
sir.
be both coinciding on top of each other. And the important thing is, if you see k-means, we have this type of thing in the Lloyd's algorithm, which we are trying to minimize actually. We are trying to minimize this. If you recall back, you are actually trying to minimize the distance between the xi's and the clusters. But here, if you see, for this particular point, the data points which are over here, let us say, let me change the color. Let us say this data point, but here if you see, if you draw the line between these two, it is maximum distance. It is not a minimum distance. Whereas in this case, if you see, if you take that similar data point here, the distance is minimum. You can see here we have this centroid C1 and this distance is minimum. Whereas in this case it is maximum. And you are actually using Lloyd algorithm and you are using arg minimum. So because of this arg minimum thing, Lloyd's algorithm will find this as the solution and not this as the solution, because here the distance is maximizing. So everybody is comfortable with this, that reasoning, that k-means will never produce this, because the distance that you are getting by putting the centroid in the middle here is maximizing the distance, which is not the objective function of the Lloyd's algorithm. That's why this result will never come out using k-means. Any questions here regarding this? So if everybody agrees with this reasoning, so can you tell me, like, you want something like a non-linear clustering here. So we have done something similar to that in past. So can you recall back that how to solve this problem using k-means? Can you recall? Like, we have done something similar to this in our SVM also. We have done the similar thing in our logistic regression setting also. So this is the third time I am trying to introduce that concept again. So you are trying to come up with a non-linear type of boundary here. So can you reason out that what we can do here, like to solve this problem using k-means?
Use kernels.
Right, good. So basically, you are trying to come up with the something like this nonlinear type of boundary. So we will be trying to introduce kernels here. So this is the third time I am bringing kernels into the picture. The last time you already have seen that 2 times it was in logistic regression and in case of SVMs. So this is the third time. So let us see that. So if you recall from your earlier lecture, I had this particular thing, alpha ij. If you recall, we had this alpha ij, which was actually setting the value to 1 if the cluster setting the value of 1 if this particular you have this I corresponding to the data set xi and j corresponds to the cluster. So if a particular point xi belongs to a cluster j, then you put that value as 1. But if the particular point xi doesn't belong to the cluster j, then you put that value to 0. So this was a mathematical interpretation which I explained last time. So how to select this j is basically, selection is on this basis, which we know that it's minimizing over all the clusters and finding the data point which is close to the specific cluster indicated by mu n. So I explained this last time, so I'm not going into the details of it. So now what we will do is, we will modify this equation. And we will not do anything fancy here. What we will do, we will actually embed this particular xi into a nonlinear transformation phi. So we will embed this xi in a nonlinear transformation phi. And similarly, we will embed this mu l also into a nonlinear transformation phi mu l. That's it. So we will non-linearly transform. So what we are doing here is, we are increasing the basis. As you can recall in our earlier lectures, we increased the basis from x to let us say x square, x cube, x to the power 4, something like that we did last time in our earlier lectures. So we are doing something like that here also. We are increasing the basis. So when we are increasing the basis, means we are embedding this feature into a non-linear feature matrix phi. So this is the only difference that we will do here, and it will work for our case. And how will it be doing it? So let us see that. So here you see it's nothing but just the algebraic manipulation that I am doing here. So what I am doing, I am replacing this particular thing as x transpose. So we can write like this, or x transpose x. So you can replace this thing with that. So once you do that, what you can do, you can solve internally all these things, and what you will get is this particular expression. It is very simple. You have to use x transpose x for this particular thing, and then you expand the internals, you will get something like this shown in the white. And what you observe now is, you observe this particular term first. You observe this particular term first, and if you see this, it closely resembles the kernel function which we have discussed last time. So it is basically what you can do. You can replace this by a kernel function which is like this, and this kernel will take xi as one of the arguments and xi as the another argument. So both the points will be same, xi. So it will be phi xi transpose phi xi. Both of them are xi. That's why xi is coming here. So now the second thing is, we have to understand what this term is and what this term is. Once we understand that, we can place them here. We can replace it here. So in order to understand this term, which is the first term of this second term, I am writing it like this. So you can see what I am doing. I am doing nothing. You know already that if I remove this phi here and if I remove this phi here, this mean function I have already discussed during the k-means. So now the only thing that changes, that you are actually encapsulating in the phi feature. So that is the only thing that I have changed here. And note that in this particular setting, I am not calculating the mu-l explicitly. I am not calculating mu-l explicitly because it is embedded in the feature phi. So once it is done here, what I will do, I will rewrite this particular part again. Which is over here, and I can write it like this. It's very simple, because you write phi ul as this, and in this you are actually multiplying phi xi transpose on this. So you can bring it inside, and what you will get is this. And note that this is xi xj. So this is again one of the implementation of the kernels. And if you do the same thing for phi ul and phi ul transpose and phi ul, and you know phi ul is this, so you can do this also like this, and you can replace this particular term again with this kernel. So now if you put this term and this term into this term and this term, if you substitute here, and you already know for this term you have this particular k, so what you can do is, you can rewrite the expression like this. So here your alpha ij is 1, and the value of j that you are selecting for different clusters, that is L running from 1 to k, will be based on this setting. And here all you have is all these kernels. Now earlier there was no such kind of kernel, and you note earlier you had mu here. Note this point. You had mu earlier, and now this mu is gone. So this mu is gone from this side. It's actually encapsulated in the kernel. It's not calculated now. Mu is completely gone. So the thing is, as we were discussing earlier in this setting, what we were saying, that we have to calculate the distance of this point from the mu, and it is getting maximized and all that type of stuff, because of which you are not able to get a kernel PC. You could not get k-means giving you this result. So the important point note here is, now the mu is gone completely. So if mu is gone, that problem is solved. So if that problem is solved, now using this kernels, you can actually form that type of complex boundary which is given over here, this one. So using kernel k-means. So you are using kernel k-means to solve this type of problems. So any questions here regarding this kernel k-means? So you note that it's a Lloyd algorithm where alpha aj is calculated by this. Your means are not calculated. It is implicitly calculated in these kernels. So this is basically the concept of kernel means that that I have finished. So this is called as kernel means, kernel k means. Now, if you recall back, I had this slide where we have this sensitivity to the outlier thing. So, in order to solve this type of problem, what we do is we use k-medoids. So, this is another algorithm in the category of k-means which we call as k-medoids. It is similar to k-means, but the important points which are different from k-means are that it chooses actual data points as centers. It chooses actual data points as centers and thereby allows greater interpretability of the clusters. So what is the difference? The difference is, if you note here, if you note in this particular scene, what you observe is that the clusters that you are getting in the final iteration of the k-means, these data points are not, these clusters are not the actual data points. They are, these locations are different from the data points location. Whereas in k-medoids, what we are trying to say is we want to bring in, we want to select the clusters only on the data points, whether it is this or this or this or this. What we want is that our clusters should be the data points only, and it should not be this one and should not be this one. So that is what k-medoids are trying to solve. So the important reason that they want to give here is that what they say is that this particular cluster in k-means are not interpretable. They are not interpretable. Why it's like that? Like for example, if you see, if you want to detect whether the person has a cancer or not a cancer, so you know that each of these data points will have, feature vectors of the genes. It will be basically a list of feature vectors for particular selection of the genes. You will tell that this person has cancer or not a cancer. Similarly, for this person also, it will have its own set of features. Based on that, you will say this person is not having cancer. So each of these data points have their own list of special features in terms of the genes functions, like, depending upon the features of the genes, it will do that. But if you see these clusters, these clusters are actually mean of all the data points which are close to it. So if they are mean of all the data points which are close to it, then for each of these clusters also I can write down the feature vectors of the genes. But the problem is that these values which you are having here are the mean values of all the features nearby to this centroid. The problem is that these values which are showing over here, these values are not interpretable. You don't know what these values will signify. You don't know whether these values will be, whether it will give you a, whether the person is having a cancer or not a cancer by reading these values at least, because it's an average value of all the individual features of the genes. So what we want is, we want our centroids also to become one of the data points, so that for each of these data points, the feature vectors at least we know, and we can tell that, oh, this particular data point is having a centroid this, and all these features we know already, and they are interpretable. So that is the logic behind k-medoids. So what k-medoids is saying is, you want the centroids to be the data points so that it has greater interpretability of the clusters. So any question here in understanding this concept of k-medoids?
Sir, how
Yeah.
will this solve the problem of outliers?
Yeah, I am telling that coming in.
Okay, sir.
So the algorithm that is used to do this k midoid thing is called as partitioning around midoids. So what we call this as PAM algorithm, which is partitioning around midoids. So this algorithm is like this, so in this way, what we do is we greedily select k of the m data points as the midoids. So now we are selecting, this is actually the same step that we were doing for case of k means also, that we are selecting k if k is less than m. So m are the total data points, so you are selecting k data points as midoids. Now what you do is you associate each data point to the closest midoid. So what you do, this is also you know already, that once you have uh, cluster, once you have this clustering, once you have this clusters defined, now you are doing the clustering of the closest points to that cluster. So this also is the same, this is also the same in case of k-means algorithm. But the only difference that now comes is the swapping part in midoids. And what is that? That while the cost of the total thing changes, like decreases, while the cost decreases, you have to do these two steps. For each midoid I, for each midoid I that you have selected, and for each non-midoid point O, let us say it's a non-midoid point, so you will swap these 2 points I and O, and you compute the cost. You swap these 2 points during the cluster assignment, during the centroid assignment, because I is the midoid and O is the data points which are xi's. So you will swap these 2 points together and compute the cost change. So if the cost changes and it is better than the current cost, in terms of like it is less than the current cost, then you remember this swapping I and O. But if it is not, then you do it again. So the cost is important. Like if the cost decreases in swapping the midoid with the non-midoid point, then you retain it. But if the cost increases, you do not change it. So you keep on doing this and you select the best swap. The best swap will be selected based on which swap is actually giving you the highest loss in the cost function. So you do it with all the points. Like for I, you will do it for you swap I with all the data points O, and for what combination of I and O will give you the maximum decrease in the loss, you select that pair. That is what I star and O star means. So if you see the pictorial representation, it is given something like this. Here what I am doing is I am taking k is equal to 2 as the example. So I am taking two midoids, which is this midoid and this midoid. These are the two midoids, and note that they are the data points only. And now what I'll do the assignment step, where I am assigning these points to the nearest cluster. So it will be this cluster and this is the second cluster. So this step is similar to k-means. And I have calculated the cost also here. Let us say it is 20. So now the important thing that comes in midoid, which is the swapping function, which is given over here. See, swap. So this swapping, what this swapping will do is, it will try to, I will zoom it here. It will try to, it will try to swap this centroid with this, or with this, or with this, or with this. So it will try to do swapping with this also, with this also, with this also, with this, all the data points which are in this cluster. So for each of these swappings, it will calculate the cost. So once it is done, it will select only that pair which will give you the minimum cost. So in this situation which is given over here, let us say this is the particular pair which is actually giving you the minimum cost compared to the other pairs, which are this one, or this one, or this one, or this one. So out of all these pairs, this is the one which is giving you the minimum cost. So what we do, we swap it here. So we swap the centroid from here to here now, and now the new centroid is this, which is the data point only. So this centroid, is interpretable because the features of this centroid are interpretable, because you know the features. So this is basically the K-Medoid algorithm. And what happens is, when you try to solve it for the outlier case, what happens is, this cluster which is over here will not be the situation, because this is not allowed in case of K-Medoids. And what K-Medoid is doing is, it will be retaining the cluster on either this point or this point or this point or this point or this point. But the problem is, like, for example, if you have selected the cluster, this one, let us say if you have selected this as your cluster, then it will try to calculate the distance between this and this, it will calculate the distance between this and this, it will calculate the distance between this and this, and it will calculate the distance between this and this also, which is an outlier. So if it calculates the distance between this and this, which is an outlier, this distance will be large. So you know the cost function, the loss function will increase. So if the loss increases, it will not be selected as the centroid location. So, your centroid movement will be somewhere here only. That's why the centroid can be this, 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 or this, but it will not be this. So that's why this particular algorithm will avoid this outlier setting in K-Medoids. So is that doubt clear? Like the person who was asking me this question?
Yes, yes, it is.
Okay, so this is the algorithm for that. So this finishes off with the K-Medoids, and in fact K-means and all the family of K-means. In the next class we will discuss another clustering algorithm, and we will move forward. So if you have any question, let me know. Otherwise, we will finish this class now.
Sir,
Yes.
still what all topics will be covered?
So it will be like, I will be doing hierarchical clustering, then I will be doing Gaussian mixture modeling, and then I'm thinking of doing dimensionality reduction. So everything is there. So still a lot of it is to be covered. Any questions?
Sir, how to check the model fairness? Like when we were looking at the graphs that you showed us in the k-means clustering, some of them were coming under a cluster which was not supposed to be there. But when we are considering, let's say the two clusters are something like someone is COVID positive or not, and we want to know what is the test, like we want to do test on the model that we want to predict only the people who are actually positive tested, but that makes a compromise on the other cluster. So how do you check that, sir? How do you decide the aggressiveness of the model
So
in
what you
this
are
case?
saying is, how to basically say that which cluster is better compared to the other one. That's what you are trying to ask.
Yes, sir. And also how to decide how aggressive the model should be.
See, the first thing that I want to discuss is, like, in case of selection of the clustering thing, like which cluster is better compared to the another one. It depends upon the cost function first of all, because anyhow the cost function which gives you the minimum value will be the with the one which we will go with. That is the first thing. And the second thing is, see, this particular cost function that you are working with in case of k-means clustering is not the convex function. It's a non-convex function, so it has multiple suboptimal results, and it's not it's difficult to find the unified global minima here. So that is one of the major drawbacks of this algorithm, that you will not be able to find a optimal cluster which can segregate or which can separate the two clusters completely. And like in case what you are saying for COVID and non-COVID thing, you will get the best
Sir,
clusters out. So it will be difficult to do this using this particular thing.
sir, actually I lost my connection in between. So
Oh,
can you please repeat?
so
Yes.
what I'm saying is, it's difficult to. Anyhow, this is recorded also. You can watch what I said earlier. But the thing is, this particular thing, that what I'm saying is, this k means is always, it's a non-convex function, and it doesn't give you an optimal result. So it's always a suboptimal result that you will get. It depends upon your k means setting also, like how much k you are taking. And the thing is, the results that you will get are not perfect in this particular setting. So there will definitely be, in a practical scenario in which you are saying, like for COVID and non-COVID cases, the clustering will definitely give you some errors in that situation. It will not be always perfect. So it will have some disbalancing in the data set distribution. Like some of them will be as an outlier in the another cluster. But to check the fairness, I have to see that because I don't know that area because it's completely different. That one I don't know. But for this particular scenario, what I can say is these results which you are getting, you have to keep on iterating to get the best results out. You cannot get them from single run because of this non-convex property of k-means. Okay.
I was
Any other question? Okay, so then the time is also over now. So let's finish this class, and in the next class we will discuss more of these clustering algorithms. Thank you.